The hotel lobby always looked the same: bright floor tiles, tall plants near the entrance, gold-framed artwork on the walls, and a grand piano placed right in the center like a piece of expensive decoration. People rarely touched it. Most guests treated it like a museum item rather than something meant to be played. Only during special events did a hired musician sit there. The concierge worked at the hotel for years. He was the kind of person most guests saw every day but never really looked at. He opened doors, guided visitors to the elevator, carried luggage, answered questions politely, and made sure everyone felt welcome. His uniform was always pressed neatly, and his smile never looked forced. Some staff said he had the calmest voice in the whole building. But even with all that, he was invisible to most people. Every day, he passed the grand piano while doing his rounds. Sometimes, when the lobby was quiet, he slowed down just for a second to glance at it. He never touched it, not even once. But the way he looked at it held something like memory or longing. Only a few people noticed that tiny spark, and even they never asked him about it. One afternoon, a wealthy businessman arrived at the hotel. He was known for his sharp tongue and loud complaint. His car alone drew attention: sleek, polished, expensive. The lobby staff recognized the type immediately. Guests like him liked things their way, and they made sure everyone knew it. The concierge greeted him with the usual calm tone. "Welcome. How may I assist you today?" The businessman barely made eye contact. He looked around the lobby as if checking whether everything matched his standards. His eyes landed on the grand piano, and he smirked a little. "This thing, still here," he said loudly. "Does anyone even know how to play it?" A few guests turned their heads. The concierge smiled politely. "Our performers use it during events, sir." The businessman looked the concierge up and down, then asked, "Do you know how to play anything?" The concierge shook his head slightly. "I used to," he said quietly. "A long time ago." "Used to," the businessman repeated. "Don't tell me you think you can still play." His voice rose, and a few more people looked over. The concierge didn't respond, partly because the question wasn't really a question. It was meant as an insult, not curiosity. The businessman laughed loudly. "Come on, don't even look at it. This piano isn't for people like you." His words echoed across the lobby, harsh and unnecessary. A couple of staff members exchanged uncomfortable glances. One guest looked offended on behalf of the concierge, but the concierge didn't show anger. He simply nodded and continued doing his job, even though something tightened inside his chest. He didn't defend himself. He didn't argue. That wasn't his nature. Some people fought with words, but he fought by remaining calm. The businessman walked away, still smirking, and checked in at the front desk while complaining about something trivial. The concierge helped other guests quietly, hiding whatever sting he felt. He didn't let his face show how the insult affected him, but deep inside, it replayed in his mind. "This piano isn't for you." He had heard variations of that sentence many times in his life. Some people said it kindly, others sharply, but the meaning was always the same. Stay in your place. Don't dream too big. Don't forget who you are. But he wasn't someone who believed dreams had boundaries, even if he had buried his own for years. Later in the evening, after the busiest hours passed, the lobby grew calm. Soft music played through the speakers, the smell of coffee drifted from the cafe, and only a few guests sat around reading or chatting softly. The concierge stood behind his desk, sorting paperwork. His shift would end soon, and the night staff were already preparing to take over. He looked toward the piano again. For some reason, tonight felt different. Maybe it was the insult earlier. Maybe it was the way the sunlight had hit the keys in the afternoon. Or maybe he simply missed the feeling of playing. He finished his task slowly, giving himself time to think. When the last guest walked into the elevator and the lobby became almost empty, he took a deep breath. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from something else. Something close to desire. He stepped toward the piano quietly, as if walking toward an old memory. The room felt larger now, the silence heavier. He stood beside the piano for a moment, staring at the glossy surface. He touched the side lightly with his fingertips. The cool, smooth feel of it awakened something deep inside him. He looked around. Only two people were nearby, a woman reading a book and a couple chatting softly at the far end. None of them paid attention to him. The night receptionist was busy checking reservations. It felt safe enough. He pulled the piano bench out gently. The sound was soft, barely noticeable. He sat down slowly, his heart beating a little faster. It had been years, decades maybe. He couldn't even remember the last time he played a full piece. His life had taken different turns: work, responsibilities, family problems, financial struggles. Music had become something he admired from afar but never dared to return to. His fingers hovered above the keys. They felt unfamiliar and familiar at the same time. He pressed one key lightly. A single note filled the lobby. Not loud, not sharp, just a simple, clear sound. It surprised him how easily it came back. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting that note wash over him. Then he pressed another, and another. A little melody began forming naturally, like a quiet stream finding its path. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't performing, he was remembering. The melody grew slowly, opening like a flower. Soft, gentle, full of emotion he never expressed verbally. It was a tune his mother used to hum when he was young, a tune he had learned to play as a child. It carried memories of warm evenings, simple joys, and the feeling of being safe. His fingers moved smoothly now, growing more confident with each second. He didn't need sheet music. The tune lived inside him, even after all these years. People in the lobby began noticing. The woman reading her book looked up slowly. The couple stopped talking mid. Even the receptionist lifted her head with surprise. The concierge kept playing, unaware of the attention. His eyes were closed, his posture relaxed. He was living in the memory of a time when music wasn't complicated. It was just pure feeling. Minutes passed. Not a single word was spoken. The entire lobby listened, and then the businessman walked back in. He entered loudly at first, talking on his phone, complaining again about something. But the moment he heard the melody, his voice stopped. He lowered his phone slowly, confused. That tune, soft, emotional, almost fragile, didn't match the image he had of the concierge he mocked earlier. He walked forward slowly, each step quieter than the one before. He stood a few meters away, staring in disbelief. This wasn't someone randomly tapping keys. This was someone who understood music deeply. The businessman's expression changed. His arrogance melted away. His judgment collapsed. He suddenly felt small, embarrassed, even guilty. The concierge finally opened his eyes near the end of the melody. He saw the businessman standing there, watching him with a frozen expression. Their eyes met for a brief second, but the concierge didn't stop playing. He let the final notes drift gently across the lobby until the sound faded naturally. Silence followed. A soft, emotional silence. And then, one by one, people started clapping. The businessman didn't clap. He couldn't. He was too stunned, too humbled, too ashamed of his earlier words. The concierge stood up slowly, bowing his head slightly to acknowledge the small audience. He looked calm on the outside, but inside, he felt something warm and light, like he had reclaimed a part of himself he thought was long gone. The lobby returned to stillness, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Everyone, including the businessman, now looked at the concierge differently, and that was the moment the story truly began. The moment the concierge finished playing, the entire lobby stayed silent for a few seconds, almost like everyone needed a moment to understand what they had just heard. The last note of the melody was still floating in the air, soft and warm, making the room feel different. Even the air seemed calmer, as if the music had told it to settle down. People who had been busy with their phones lifted their heads. Guests who were checking in turned around. A couple sitting near the fireplace leaned closer to each other, whispering in surprise. And the millionaire, who only minutes ago had laughed loudly and confidently, was now standing a little straighter, unable to hide the shock in his eyes. The concierge slowly pulled his hands away from the keys. His fingers were trembling a little, but not from fear. They shook from the emotion that was still running through him. He hadn't played like that in years, not since life forced him to stop. But somehow, sitting at that grand piano again had brought it all back in a single wave. The millionaire cleared his throat, trying to regain the voice he had lost. He forced a laugh, but it came out thin, almost empty. Well, he said, that was something. People in the lobby didn't agree with his awkward reaction. Instead, they clapped. The sound rose slowly at first, like people were afraid the moment was too delicate to break. But then the applause grew louder, stronger, more honest. Even the hotel staff paused from their work to join in. The concierge looked down, trying to hide the redness in his eyes. He had never wanted attention. He wasn't used to people clapping for him. In fact, he had spent years avoiding anything that might remind him of his past. But real applause felt like sunlight after a long cold day. A woman stepped forward and spoke with heartfelt admiration. "Sir, that was beautiful. I have never heard anything like that." Another guest asked, "Where did you learn to play like this?" The concierge smiled politely. "A long time ago," he answered softly. "Before life took me in a different direction." Someone else requested, "Play another one, please." The millionaire stiffened, watching the crowd gather around a man he had dismissed just minutes earlier. He wasn't used to losing attention to someone he saw as ordinary. He especially wasn't used to being wrong, publicly wrong. His jaw tightened, and he forced another small smile that didn't reach his eyes. The concierge shook his head. "I'm sorry, but I don't want to get in trouble. I still have my shift. The lobby is busy, and I don't want to disturb the guests." But almost right away, the hotel manager stepped in. He had been watching the whole thing from behind the front desk. His expression was a mixture of shock, pride, and excitement. "You're not disturbing anyone," the manager said warmly. "In fact, you've made this lobby feel more alive than ever." He glanced around. "If you want to play another piece, you can. You have my permission." The concierge hesitated. He looked at the piano, he looked at the crowd, and then he looked at the millionaire who was still trying to act unaffected. The concierge didn't want revenge. He didn't want to embarrass anyone. He wasn't that type of person. But he also knew that the piano was not a toy for showing off. It was an instrument that carried stories, memories, and feelings something deeper than ego. So he sat down again. This time he took a deep breath before touching the keys. He chose a melody that felt like home, calm, emotional, full of warmth and simplicity. As he played, his movements were smooth and natural. His face relaxed. His shoulders dropped. He looked like someone who had finally stepped into a room he had been locked out of for years. The guests listened quietly. Some closed their eyes. Others recorded the moment on their phones. Leftover conversations faded away until all that existed was the sound of the piano. Then something surprising happened. The millionaire slowly walked closer. At first, people thought he was going to interrupt again, maybe with another proud comment, but instead, he stood off to the side, watching the concierge with a confused expression filled not with arrogance, but with something no one expected, cool and regret. The song continued, each note soft and meaningful. When the concierge played the last chord, the room filled with applause once again, and this time, even louder. Some people cheered, others smiled brightly. A few even had tears in their eyes. The concierge stood up slowly, feeling lighter than before. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not as a hotel worker, not as a man forgotten by his dreams, but as someone who still had something special inside him. The millionaire stepped forward. For a moment, everyone watched, unsure of what would happen. The millionaire cleared his throat again. This time not to hide pride, but because he didn't know how to speak. His voice was softer than before, almost nervous. "I didn't know you could play like that," he said. The concierge gave a gentle smile. "Most people don't." The millionaire lowered his eyes, struggling to find the right words. "I may have spoken too quickly earlier." People around them exchanged looks. It wasn't a full apology, but it was something. "A step. I shouldn't have assumed anything." The millionaire continued. "Your talent is incredible." The concierge shook his head. "Everyone has something special. We just don't always see it." Those words hit the millionaire harder than expected. He nodded slowly, absorbing them like someone hearing a truth he had ignored for too long. The manager stepped forward, smiling proudly. "You've given everyone here a moment they'll never forget." The concierge felt shy again and looked down. "I'm just glad it made people smile." Then, something completely unexpected happened. A young guest approached him with a small notepad. "Sir, can I have your autograph?" The concierge blinked. "Autograph? Mine?" He looked confused, almost embarrassed. "I'm not famous, but you played like someone who should be," the child said with a bright grin. The crowd laughed warmly. The concierge hesitated, then signed his name slowly. It felt strange, but also heart-touching. As people began to disperse, the millionaire remained standing near the piano. He seemed deep in thought, as if he was replaying his earlier behavior and comparing it to the man he had just heard play. Finally, he spoke. "Do you teach?" he asked carefully. The concierge looked surprised. "Teach? Yes," the millionaire said. "I have a daughter who loves music." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'd like her to learn from someone who plays with heart, not just skill." The concierge didn't answer right away. Teaching was something he once wanted to do, long before life forced him into another path. He felt a soft ache in his chest thinking about it. "I'm not sure," he whispered. "It's been many years." "Then start again," the millionaire said quietly. "Everyone deserves a second chance." The manager nodded supportively. "You don't have to decide today, just think about it." The concierge nodded. "I will." When the crowd finally returned to their routines, the concierge gently closed the piano lid. He touched it softly, as if thanking an old friend that had waited patiently for him all these years. The millionaire walked away slower than before, his pride smaller, his respect greater, and the concierge returned to his desk. but with a different feeling inside him, a feeling he thought he had lost forever. The lobby felt warm, the air felt brighter, and everyone who had been there knew they had witnessed something rare, not a show, but a human moment. A reminder that talent can come from anywhere. A reminder that respect is not measured by money. A reminder that you never really lose your gift. You only forget how to believe in it. And because of one unexpected moment, a concierge who thought his musical life was long over discovered that it was only beginning again.